Students encourage suicide for sadistic enjoyment. Okay, this happened to me very recently. Last year, we were reading a play about a suicidal person, Hamlet, and someone spread a rumor that I tried to kill myself in the past. It's true. 2009, 2011, 2014, and I have permanent injuries. I have struggled with bipolar disorder and eating disorders since kindergarten. I felt alienated because other kids would stare at me in class, not malicious, more sympathy than anything, and act oddly around me. Then these two boys in my science class, one was in both science and Spanish, chose to befriend me. Soon they started making sexual advances. They would frequently compare me to the girl from 13 Reasons Why. We have the same makeup and hair, but that's where the resemblance ends, and make comments like tragically beautiful. By the way, I later learned that everyone avoids them at school, and they have been described as sociopathic and manipulative since elementary school. They frequently ask me questions like, "Do you ever feel like living isn't worth it?" And when I said no, they would tell me to give into it and don't resist it. They would make comments encouraging and glorifying suicide towards me. I frequently talked about celebrities who took their own lives and said that their problems are over now, they're at peace. This happened frequently, and the kid in Spanish class even gave me information on suicide methods in case finals gets too hard. I don't remember it very well because of a mild brain injury from my second attempt. They repeatedly invited me to do drugs with them and asked for my phone number, but I said no. This was very subtle manipulation, so I didn't pick up on it and tell anyone. Also, bipolar people get paranoid and can actually dismiss real concerns because they think they're being delusional again. I noticed that I started having suicidal thoughts during my manic phases as well as depressed phases, which is not normal. I decided to OD after coming home from school on Friday. After taking 2,500 milligrams of acetaminophen, I panicked and didn't go through with it. I'm scared that I was manipulated so easily. From what I heard about these two boys, it's a creepy sexual fetish thing. I would report this if I didn't literally have one day of school left. The suicide. Okay, I'll try to make this short and sweet. I just found this page and started reading the stories, and honestly, so many of them sound fake. But then I remember this story. Not only is the story insane, but it's only one of many I unfortunately experienced in my adolescence. To begin, I lived with my single mom in a small duplex on the wrong side of town. I was probably 12 and she was probably 34. But she was a complete party animal. I mean, she was always partying. Whether it was drinking herself into an early grave or shacking up with the next guy to pay bills, she was always up to something, and it made my life hell. Anyways, she came home one day and introduced me to some guy. We'll call him Andy just to remain anonymous. Anyways, she gave me the usual spiel about how he was gonna be my new daddy and blah blah blah, and we're gonna live together with him. I was shocked. I never even heard of Andy and now we're moving in with him? I was confused. I asked my mom why in the hell were we moving in with him? And she just said she loved him and was gonna be happening. She said they'd been dating for 2 months and he was the one. So mom packed our stuff and we moved away. At first it wasn't so bad. He lived in an old duplex he had bought and was remodeling, and I had an entire part of it to myself. He had a massive movie collection, and I just basically watched movies all day and did dishes for pizza at the gas station next door. A few months later, I started school, and that's when everything started changing. It was a very small town, and everyone instantly hated me. I was picked on mercilessly, and the kids were pretty violent. I never had a problem at any other school before, but for some reason, I was relentlessly tortured by everyone. I started to think it was because I was an outsider, until after school one day, some kids started telling me my house was haunted. They said a girl killed herself in there, and I was a freak if I lived there. I had no idea what was going on. I rode my bike home and asked my mom why the kids would say something like that. She told me that Andy's last girlfriend was crazy and shot herself in the duplex I stayed in. She lived, though, and was in another mental institution for treatment, and she didn't tell me because she knew I was already unhappy moving in with another guy. It was at this point I started to notice Andy was off. He was very emotionally abusive. He constantly made fun of my ability to do anything. and would push me out of the way and throw his weight around like it was a game. I thought he was trying to mold me, trying to make me into a man. But I guess once he found out I knew about his last gal pal, he started treating my mom the same way. My mom worked at a restaurant 30 minutes away from the house, and he owned a scrap metal shop. She started to notice he would always hang around outside and harass her coworkers. One day, one of the girls she worked with had a complete mental breakdown and tried to climb into an already preheated oven and kill herself. When my mom went to visit her, she told me it was her fault and to never speak to her again. My mom got freaked out. She decided to visit the ex-girlfriend to see if Andy had been like this before or found out what happened. When she got into the room with her, the girl told her to go home. My mom thought she meant leave the hospital. The girl said, "No, leave him, and do it very quickly." My mom panicked. She ran home and called my uncles to pick us up. We stayed the night with them, and the next day at around 3 p.m., they called her to set up a time to get the rest of her stuff. She told them to forget the stuff and to just come get her now. She was hiding in the bushes on a dirt road. My uncles found her, and what she revealed to us was terrifying. She had went to the metal shop at Andy's request to talk. The place was empty, and when she arrived, he asked her to stay. She said no, so he shoved her into his office room and drilled screws into the door to keep it shut. He yelled at her for hours, and after 2 straight hours of verbal abuse, he slid a gun under the door and told her if she wouldn't be with him, then she needed to kill herself. He said no one would miss a whore, and that I didn't love her. She said she was close, it was scary, but she snapped out of it and kicked out the windows. She had cuts all over herself from crawling out. When she called the police, they said they couldn't prove anything. And it turned out, it was the same cop to investigate the last shooting. She tried online dating a few years after that. I met a guy named Cole. After 2 weeks of talking to Cole sent a message that said, "It took me forever to find you." Mom thought that was sweet, until Cole revealed himself to be Andy. She was so scared. We had to move from where we were living. Hand to God, true story. The suicide homicide note. I've been thinking about the situation very recently, considering we have been notified that Mark is out of prison, but fortunately, the restraining order still stands, and I am married and am no longer living in that town. So here goes. It will be long because there is backstory. When I was a senior in high school and 18 years old, I was hanging around a lot of rednecks at school because they get booze easier, and I was a closet alcoholic, literally drinking at school any chance I got. Anyways, this new boy had moved to town, and I was swooning over him. Not sure why, because he was not the best kind of person. Anyways, we started dating, which consisted of having sex everywhere and anywhere we could. We would skip school to go to people's houses to screw, and I was drunk much of the time. Anyways, while we were together, I started seeing this other boy who was a very good guy, and he told me I shouldn't be with Mark because he heard Mark had gotten into some trouble at his old school for stalking girls. Well, I didn't believe it and kept seeing Mark until Mark started showing outside my house late at night. Also, Mark would talk us into going to Mexico on the weekends. It was only about 3 hours away. And when there, he would only want me to be around him, no one else. Things started to get odd, so I broke it off with him and told my friends to stay away from him. So after that, he dropped out of school and started living at a lake house, which belonged to a friend of ours. Now that is the backstory. Here starts the creepy. The first time Mark started stalking me was one night. Another friend of mine and I were getting food at McDonald's, and we saw his truck sitting in the parking lot. When we pulled out, the truck started following us on the highway. At that point, I wasn't going home because my parents were out of town and no neighbor for miles at my house. So my friend and I just drove around downtown for about 15 minutes until the truck stopped following us. This was after we had called a cop friend of ours, and he pulled up next to us in the squad car. The next occurrence happened about 2 weeks later after the same friend had turned down Mark's advances because he was a creep. I was leaving work on a Friday. I went to the bank to cash my check. After the teller cashed the check, she said she was going to start closing the blinds and stuff, and made sure I was okay. I told her that was fine because I was just gonna put my money up and leave. Well, but 1 minute later, I get ready to leave, and sitting in front of me at the drive-thru is Mark's truck, and behind me is someone else's truck. I am blocked in at this point, and Mark is standing in front of me with a bat, hitting it with his hands, very menacingly. I was terrified, so I called the cops and started yelling so Mark could hear me that the cops were on their way. This spooked the person in the truck behind me and they left. While on the phone with 911, I backed up and hightailed it out of there, going to the police station. They'd offered to let me file a restraining order, but stupid me didn't, because I didn't want my parents knowing what was going on. They had just found out about my drinking, and I was afraid I'd be in more trouble for dating this guy. So finally, about 1 month passes, and my other friend and I haven't heard anything from Mark. One weekend, my parents were going out of town, so I invited my friend over, and we're gonna have a girls' weekend. Junk food, sappy movies, and ice cream. That night, my friend mentions that she's getting weird calls from an unknown number on her cell phone, and she thought it was Mark. At that point, we knew he was still living at another friend's lake house, but no one had really seen or heard of him in about 3 weeks. I told her that we would keep my dad's gun out that night, just in case, and I would leave all the lights on as well, and let our neighbor down the road know to check in on us in the morning. At about 2 a.m. that morning, we were winding down to actually sleep, and she gets a call from her cousin, a police officer, who was very frantic and making sure that we were okay and that we had a gun with us. We told him that we did, and he said good, to stay put in a safe room. The police will be there very soon. After about 5 minutes, we hear sirens and the police show up and start searching my parents' 10 acres of land looking for Mark. They found him. About 10 minutes later, a few miles down the road, in a stolen truck, 2 shotguns and a handgun in the truck with a note detailing that if he couldn't have my friend and I, no one would, and why he had to kill us and himself so that we could all be together. What had happened? He just lost it and stole a truck from some other house by the lake, and then broke into their house stealing their guns, and had decided to come for my friend and I. He knew that we spent most every weekend at my house, and I got word from someone that we would be alone together that weekend. The people who stole the truck and guns from had a video alarm system, so the police were notified immediately, and they called us immediately and began looking for him. Luckily, he hadn't got to my house yet, so we were saved. They arrested Mark that night, and he was in prison for about 7 years for stalking and attempted manslaughter or something similar, grand theft auto, etc. I didn't keep up with the case. I just wanted to put it behind me. About 2 years ago, he was released on parole for good behavior, and he had apparently gotten a college degree and was rehabilitated. My friend and I both have standing restraining orders against him, but her and I have since gotten married and don't live in the small town. We aren't sure where he is now because no one has had contact with him since he went to prison. I've heard he is in South Texas working, and I've heard he's a roughneck in the Gulf, so I'm not sure, as long as he stays far away from me. I think the creepiest part of the whole thing is that he got my name and my friend's name tattooed on his chest and back, so he could have us with him forever. I finally told my family about it when he was arrested, and as I thought, they were upset at me for dating him, but glad we were okay. I've since put the whole ordeal behind me, but for a while, when he first got out, I would get scared when I saw a truck that looked like his. Sorry for being so long. Have you ever thought about suicide? Back in December of 2004. Doesn't seem real, it's been almost 10 years. I was living in Portland, Oregon, attending college at the time. I was sitting at home one night, writing my last research paper for the term. I had my Yahoo IM up, chatting to a few friends when a message from someone not on my list pops up. Have you ever thought about suicide? Okay, weird. But hey, it's almost midnight on a Sunday night, and stranger things haven't asked me before, can I see your tits, etc. So I messaged the stranger back for kicks. Sure, who hasn't at some point, why? Well, asking that question opened Pandora's box. He battered me with questions about how I wanted to die. Why did I want to die? Would I want to die with others, etc.? Obviously getting creepier and creepier as the conversation continues, but I play along, assuming the guy just screwing around with me. I ask him his name. He says it's Jerry, and I ask to see a picture. He sends me to a profile pic on Hot or Not and asks me if I think he's good looking. I tell him, sure, yeah, you're cute, whatever. He asks to see a picture of me. I send him a random old photo of a girl in my MySpace friends. Yes, it's that old, I realize now. And he tells me he thinks I'm a 10. Awesome. Thanks, Jerry, who is obsessed with suicide. As the conversation continues, he tells me he's sick of life and women don't seem to be attracted to him. He wants to end it all. I tell the things you're supposed to say to people in this situation. Relationships are nothing. You're more important to the people in your life. Don't do it. Blah, blah, blah. I'm not heartless, but I don't feel like talking to someone off of a ledge at now, 1 a.m. Jerry tells me he's met a lot of women online that want to kill themselves, and he's planning a party for Valentine's Day a month and a half from now, so everyone can come and do it together at his house in Oregon. He asked me if I'd be interested in joining. I say, yeah, sure, but make an excuse I don't have a car to get down there. He tells me there are a few women from Portland coming down for it, and one of them has a van. He's sure I can catch a ride. He says he's built a beam in his home that will hold up to 50 bodies at once, and that I shouldn't wear shoes because they'll weigh me down. By now, yes, I'm starting to realize this guy's acting very serious, and this is in fact not a joke. So I start asking him specifics, what his address is, what his full name is, who are the women traveling from Portland. He tells me their names, and that one of them is bringing their 5 children with her, and that they want to die as well. Huge red flags are up at this point, so while I'm still chatting with him, I call a friend of mine back home in Eastern Oregon who works as a 911 dispatcher. She's actually at work when I call her, and after telling her the whole story, she advises me to hang up and call Portland Police Department right away. At least give them into the info to pass at Klamath Falls. She makes a record into her system that I've called just in case. I keep talking to Jerry and call the Portland Police. They send 2 officers about an hour later, and they pretty much laugh at me when I explain to them what the hell's been going on. I print our chat log out, give them the guy's full name and address I've already verified through Google as being legit. And they tell me to just quit talking to him, simple as that, and go about their business. Don't I feel stupid now? I call my friend back home and tell her what Portland PD did, and she said to keep an eye on things. If he keeps talking, just keep saving the conversation. So I do, for another 2 hours, and things just get to the point where I can't handle him anymore. He's battering me with questions about how do I want to die? Wearing clothes or naked? Do I want to have sex before I die? Would I have a problem killing kids before? Would I want to hold hands with others while we hang? Finally, I just told him I'd be in touch closer to Valentine's Day. For the most part, I laughed it off with some friends, because Portland PD never got back to me about anything. So of course, I assumed it ended up being a very strange prank. Fast forward, February 10, 2005. A friend calls me while I'm on campus on my way to work, and tells me some guy down at Klamath Falls has been arrested for trying to set up a mass suicide pact for Valentine's Day. I'm floored. I run to my office, log into my computer, and sure enough, it's everywhere on all the news forums. Gerald Crean arrested for plotting mass suicide Valentine's Day party. My friend comes back home, sees the news, and calls me. Tells me I need to call back to Portland PD and tell them I called this back in December. I make the call, and an hour later, 2 FBI agents are coming to pick me up at my job, taking me home, and taking my entire computer to be analyzed. We sit in my living room, and I'm questioned over and over about my involvement and if I was really planning to commit suicide. I kept telling them over and over that I just talked to the guy as a joke, thought it was some sort of prank, and that I only called the cops when he started to talk about some woman from Portland bringing her kids too. And I've given all the information to the Portland PD's officers back in December. How am I supposed to know they never did anything with this whole situation? Which they didn't. They sat on it, probably shredded it, and never sent any of the information to Klamath Falls. The agents tell me the story has gotten a lot bigger. That Crean had contacted hundreds of people. At least 30 had agreed to come on Valentine's Day to his house and commit suicide together. One woman, her parents found some emails between she and Crean and called the police. That's how they finally got involved. Not from me nearly 2 months ago. This happened less than a week before Valentine's Day. I'm freaked out. They drop me back at the college and I tell my boss everything that's happened. She tells me that reporters have been calling nonstop since I left wanting to talk to me. She said she didn't give them my cell phone number, but that she thought it was only a matter of time before they showed up at the office. I was a student worker. My name is on the campus website and directory. If the AP got a hold of my police report, there was no saying how fast they could start tracking me down. I called my mom, tell her what's happened. She tell me she'll be up that evening to come get me and bring me home for a break. I take 4 days off, turn in what assignments I have left. The FBI has the rest on my tower, and head off to Eastern Oregon to wait out the media. Big mistake. Huge. Because by the time I made it back home that night, they'd already tracked down my brother and my sister-in-law. Thought it was a cool idea that ABC and CNN wanted to talk to me, so they gave them my parents' address and my cell phone number. She's an idiot. I was harassed, chased down, and semi-terrorized until I finally gave an interview to Good Morning America. I hoped it would die down then. The story was out. Who cares? Wrong. Apparently, every friggin' outlet cares until you give them the 15 seconds of conversation the others didn't get. I had my 15 seconds of fame, and I never want to deal with that shit again. Crean is still sitting in the Salem State Hospital for his crimes for solicitation to commit murder. Mister, have you ever thought about suicide? Let's not meet in real life.